And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 251. Holy cow. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back right after our short intro from our sponsors.
GC Packer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. GC Packer.
We are live once again. Things feel off a little bit today. I just feel like I'm off, the sound's off, the lighting's off, everything's off. Having one of those off days, I guess. I mean, everything else is going good. But welcome back, everybody, to episode 251 of Behind the Tool Belt. I'm with my great friend, and I do consider you a friend, Randy. We actually had the honor and the privilege to speak on two stages together. I think, was it RoofCon last year was the first time we were on an 8-figure CEO panel?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. It was the first time I actually got to initially, meet you and introduced myself to you. And we had a great conversation backstage that I'll be honest with you, it kind of drew me to you. And we've kind of sort of stayed connected through social media a little bit, and then kind of started to drift away a little bit. But then we were reunited out at the Limitless event summit that was held out in Kansas City. Man, that was such a great event. Of course, it got me thinking about you again. Like, yeah, man, Randy, don't forget about Randy. We got to get him on the show. And so I thought I'd reach out to you, man, get you on the show, because you seem like you're jamming right now. You're vibing. Things are going good. You were just, I noticed DT Roofing was named in the, what was the top 100 roofers of 2024. And that in itself is a huge accomplishment. And it seems like you're just doing things right over there, man. Nobody's got any ill words, at least not the circle of people that I travel in, which is pretty much the same circle of people that you're rolling with right now. And nobody's got an ill thing to say about you, man. And you just seem like you're banging on all 8 cylinders right now, man. And I want to ride on that coattail. I want to be a part of that vibe with you, man. So we brought you on the show and figured we'd let our viewers and listeners, maybe get a little nugget from you, figure out how you did it, and figure out what it was like, what it's like now, and kind of how you got here, kind of thing. And hear a little bit about your backstory, and then most importantly, kind of what you're doing now, and where you get your fuel from today. Like why do you continue to keep doing what you're doing? So why don't you, kind of give us the little backstory of, because I see you've done a lot of accomplishments. You retired. You were the former fire captain at Somerville County, fire department. You were a former private first class in the Texas military department, and the list just goes out, with the DT companies, man. Like, and I got some pretty cool questions for you to ask you about, how they may coincide with each other, but we'll get to that later. So who is Randy? Give us.
Well, I could tell you first and foremost, identity wise, I'm a child of God. So I'm definitely I try to live the way I believe. And my story goes all the way back to the early 2000s when I started in IT security. And I spent over 20 years in that space, helping a software company build out to ultimately get purchased in 15 for a large, substantial amount of money. And it was right around that time that I realized that I needed to take a shift in careers. I didn't necessarily want to get back into the IT space. I'd kind of was burnt out from having the same conversations over and over. Had some great clients, worked in the Pentagon, worked with some of the Fortune 5, Fortune 50 companies that needed IT security services, and essentially go in and identify vulnerabilities for them and then come up with solutions that they could implement. So it wasn't until around, I'd say, 13 that I decided I didn't want to work from the house anymore doing that job, because my kids were loud, especially in the summers when they were home from school. My wife ordering things from FedEx, I'd get this was before COVID, where it was not acceptable to have background noise when you're working.
Mhm.
And so I finally just told my wife, look, babe, I need to get a place outside of the house so I can focus on my work and not have the distractions. And I just by happenstance happened to get an office right next to DT Roofing. They had been in business at that point since 2009 and were trucking along. And being the extrovert that I am, I would, go down the hallway and make acquaintances with everybody, all the different businesses and that in the building. And Derek and I, my now partner who started DT Roofing, just, clicked. We hit it off and we'd go to lunch a lot. And obviously business would come up. Well, my mom had 4 boys. 3 of them were in construction. The other one was a nerd. And so I really didn't know anything about construction or roofing at all, but I did understand business and I understood sales. And so, naturally when you're having conversations with somebody, it'll come up. And I've found that a sickness I have is I'm always trying to fix somebody else's business. I'll hear something. I'm like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And it just naturally will come out. And I was doing that. And I realized my contribution was going to be limited if I didn't really understand his industry. And so I said, well, my consulting work pretty much runs on autopilot. So when I'm not traveling or I'm not doing, meetings with clients, why don't I sell for you in the afternoons and on weekends so I can understand the industry? Then I can give you some feedback on what I would do to kind of, because his goal was to try to grow the company. And at that point, the company was achieving right around $1.8 million a year, roughly. And I knew it could do better. I didn't know a whole lot about the roofing world, but I knew with the average cost of roofs, just doing some simple math, that he could definitely kill it if he had all the right moving parts. And so started selling for him on the nights and weekends and did pretty well for myself in my first year selling on the side. So much so that I really started to consider like maybe this is a path of exit for the IT security space. And in late 2015, weeks before Christmas, I got a call from the owner of the company I was working for several years and just kind of let me know, hey, we got purchased. I was super excited for him because I know how hard he worked all those years. And so he deserved it. And I really do still believe that to this day. He deserved, especially now being an entrepreneur myself, knowing how much effort we've put in. It was cool to see that he finally got, to exit and benefit from all of that hard work. And so, of course, I didn't have a job. The company that purchased them didn't need my services in this area. They already had several people in the area that were doing what I did. And so it gave me an opportunity to go to Derek and say, hey, I start tomorrow. And at first he was like, oh, he was excited. But then, of course, the unknown of, okay, well, we got to figure out how the pay structure and all. I said, don't worry about that. It'll figure itself out. I said, but I've got to run it. I said, I know you only know me a year and I've contributed pretty well to the company. I said, but I don't want to have to constantly ask permission to do things. If you'll trust me, this will be a $3 to $5 million company in no time. And, it took a lot of trust for him to do that. Obviously this had been his baby since 2009, but he trusted me. And, in pretty short order, we were hitting the $3 to $5 million range in 2 years. Wow. And it was right around that time when we hit that achievement that I asked for equity in the company. I had put in the sweat equity necessary to show that I would be a viable partner. I felt at that point, and ultimately he agreed. And so from that point, after becoming partners, then there was just this constant opportunity seeking that I would look for. We were doing really good in the residential roofing space, but I was sending a lot of business to other companies in other spaces because we didn't do that. I'd have a customer, my guys would say, yeah, my customer was complimenting on how nice their roof looked, but they just would love to paint the house. And we were sending them to painters, and we were sending them to somebody that would do a remodel. We were sending all this money out the door. Mm-hmm. And I went to my partner. I said, why aren't we doing this? Why don't we partner with subs that do their trade really well and offer a solution to these customers. And through that, we'll ultimately grow the DT brand as well. And he agreed. And so we initially just ran under DT Roofing and Construction.
Mm-hmm.
And the first year doing it, we did about $1 million in additional business on the construction side, which wasn't terrible. The second year, we did 5 million. And it was at that point that we realized we should probably separate the two into two different entities so that we could tell through the books if the construction side was just a hobby or if it was a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that. And that's where Kingdom Builders Construction was born. We slowly did that over the years with other business types. We started a garage door and service company because there weren't any garage door companies in the area that didn't suck. And what I mean by that is service-wise, their bedside manner was terrible, or, every once in a while they would mess up on an install. The installs would be fine most of the time, but it was just their presentation to the public wasn't great. And so we felt like we could do a better job. And that's been the theme of all of the businesses that we've started is we don't bother getting into it if we feel like that particular trade is well served in our area. There's no reason to compete against companies doing it really well in markets that you're not familiar with. But in our markets where we weren't familiar, but we felt like we could learn it and do it better, that's when we jumped in. And so we started our garage door and service company, our gutter company. For a while, we had an exterior cleaning company that we did soft washing and power washing and what have you with. We've since exited that company and just utilized that guy for that service, just so they could take some management off of our plate. We started a commercial roofing company separate from our residential, which that's really getting off the ground and really banging. So each one of these companies we started, they were essentially, we felt like they were underserved in the markets we serve, and we felt like we could do a better job. And praise God, it has worked out that way. We've been able to serve our customers well in these areas and grow our company from 3 or 4 guys back in 15, 16 to over 70 today between our companies, and 17 of those being salespeople, 17, 18 between the companies. And we've been able to grow them. So that's kind of the initial story. We can go into how that growth happened through the relationships. But
well, that was what I was going to ask you. There's a couple of things there because it sounds like you're a visionary like I am, and potentially could be distracted at times by the shiny object over there. But I don't want to dig into that too far. I guess my first question for you was going back to that moment of like when you told, what was his name? Eric, your partner, Eric?
Derek, yeah.
Eric? Yeah. So like when you approached Eric, all right, and he agreed to you coming on, what was one of the first things that you implemented, right? Like, when you jump into a company and you see it's only doing 1.8 million dollars, but you knew you wanted to take it to $3 to $5 million. Like what did that look like? What did you implement? What did you have to put in place? What or who did you have to put in place in order for that to happen?
Well, the first few years, I didn't really change a whole lot about the inner workings of the company because it was a capital issue. We didn't have, and mathematically, we didn't have enough money to start hiring a bunch of new salaried roles. So what I did is I did what I did in my last role, which was get out there, beat the road, and find opportunity and sell. And so 50 to 70%, depending on the year, of the revenue that we made was my own personal sales. So not only was I running the sales team, I was also participating as a salesperson. Mm-hmm. After Derek agreed to equity, then the very first thing I told him after he agreed to it was, I'm getting out of sales. And his face almost exploded. I still remember we're sitting at Christina's having lunch, and I told him, and you could tell the look on his face was, I just gave you half my company, and now the person that's contributing the most revenue to the company is getting out of sales. What? This is a terrible idea. And so then I further qualified it. I said, no, I've realized that I've met the capacity of what I'm able to produce for the company revenue wise. And I would be much I would serve the company more if I were to hire a bunch of guys that met our company culture of integrity, of good moral character, plays well with others, and taught them how to sell the way I did. Then there's a multiplier, right? Then the sky's the limit when it comes to how many guys we can have on staff. Uh, any company that's out there that has had the owner as the salesperson as well understands what I mean by that. There is going to be a cap where there's just not enough. There's too many people pulling you in all these different directions. And I'm married. I've got 6 kids. I now have 4 grandchildren. There's only so much time for both the work life balance. I needed to make sure that I was focusing on my family as well. And so this was going to give me an opportunity to not only help grow the company through a multiplier, but also to spend more time with my family. And so in 18-19 range, it was actually just as COVID was hitting is when we had our largest growth spurt in the sales side. And like I said a moment ago, the people I looked for were not people that sold roofs before. Mm-hmm. I didn't want people that had sold roofs before because I didn't want them to bring their bad habits to our company. I wanted them to, like I said, have good moral character, integrity, plays well with others, then teach them how I did it in the field, and then just let everybody multiply off of that. And then when we did that, we saw our growth go from 5 million to 7.8 million to 10 million. And then we realized the growth or the process we were following as far as finding people, not necessarily that fit the role, but fit the culture, worked. And then the sky was the limit at that point. We continued to grow from 10 million to 20 million. That was a jump that year. And then 20 million to 24. And we'll do over 40 this year between our companies, but 30 of that's roofing, residential roofing. And the only way we were able to grow the company was by multiplying the number of bodies out there that were doing it the way we taught to do it, and making sure that we put the right people in those roles. We don't want guys that are out there being shoddy and kind of, the icky feeling that our industry often has attached to it. We wanted to change the minds of customers and say, well, I've always heard the roofing industry was terrible, but you guys are certainly the exception. Mm-hmm. And that's what we aim to do for our customers. But one of the things that I did when I got into roofing sales at the very beginning of coming onto the company was I didn't know all of the traditional ways that roofers sold, right? I was an IT security guy who reached out on LinkedIn to CIOs and CISOs and IT technologists and what have you, and would build a relationship where I'd have permission to meet with them, to go have lunch, to go visit their site, and build a relationship where they trusted me as a person. And then I would earn the business because they liked me and because of trust, not necessarily because of the dollar amount, right? Mm-hmm. They always say that pricing is only discussed when value isn't apparent, right? And so I would try to make sure they understood working with us was the right decision, not only intellectually, but also relationally. Like, we're here to see you succeed. Mm-hmm. So when I got into roofing sales, that's the way I approached it. I didn't approach it with a bunch of door knocking on residential doors. And I talk about this at RoofCon, and I also talked about it at Limitless, that it is necessary to do that. I'm not saying that's not a necessity. Mm-hmm. But what I did is I asked myself, which professionals require roofing in order for them to be successful? And ultimately, I came up with realtors, insurance agents, and property managers all rely on our profession in order for them to be successful. So I started focusing my efforts on building relationships and bringing value, a valuable service to these 3 types that would then cause them to always call me when they need it. So I in the book, we just released. That it actually be released at RoofCon with I'll murder his last name.
Zavatny?
Yes, Zavatny. I think you're as well.
Yeah.
the chapter is called, I believe, is Secret Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
And it's describing literally this process. Like, once I had all of these professionals calling me, I didn't have time for company generated leads.
Mm-hmm.
People calling in and saying my roof is leaking. I don't have time. Give that to the other sales guy. I don't have time. I'm constantly getting called and text. And so all I did was just teach the new guys that came in the exact same process. If you go out and you build relationships, then your phone will be ringing so much you won't have time for company generated leads. And then that's how we'll know when we need to hire another salesperson, is when my wife, who's now responsible, she wasn't when I started, but who's now responsible for any inbound leads that come in, she'll reach out to my VP of sales and say, you need to hire somebody else because we only have 3 of the 17 guys on round robin accepting company leads.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she'd know that's when we know we need, because all the other guys have so many relationships calling them constantly. And in our company, we commission based off differently, based off of a company generated lead versus a self-generated lead. And so naturally, if your goal is to do really well financially, you're going to focus on self-generated leads. And that's where my top guys get their leads from. So they don't have time to deal with the company. And so all we did is just take all these guys. We had radiologists, a teacher, a retired firefighter, just all these different walks of life that never sold a thing in their life. In fact, one of my guys, Kenny, he literally called about a role we had with our power washing company and sold me on, hey, I know you have this role open, but I'd really like to sell for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, we're not really looking right now. And he is like, I understand, but I really think, I have plenty of time on my hands. I'm retired now. And I really think I can bring a lot of value to, and he sold me on him. And he's been one of our top producers since he started several years ago, and so if I could give any advice in that realm, it would be exactly that to either VP of sales or owners, is don't necessarily look for guys that can hit the ground running selling roofs, because oftentimes they come with bad habits that you'll have to either fix or fire. And separately, just hire people that fit your culture and are teachable, and then teach them your way. And then you're not having to, fight an uphill battle.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything that you just said. I mean, as far as, gaining, trust in people, right? Everybody right now seems to be the catchphrase is, everybody that, anybody that does business, people do business with people that they like, know, and trust, right? Like that seems to be like the catchphrase right now. But, there's different, all 3 of those words are trust. Like they know, they like, and that's 2 forms of trust, right? And trust, just because I know and I like somebody, that doesn't necessarily mean I'll trust them enough to do business with them. And, I got a story about a dry cleaner company, and, I loved them. They were so friendly. I would show up there. I knew them. I liked them. And it seemed like every time I would drop something off, they were very friendly. I'd go there and my garments weren't ready. Or when I received my jacket back, there was more stains on it than there was before I dropped it off. And that's really opened my eyes to, like, I wouldn't refer them to anybody because I know they're going to ruin their stuff. And I stopped using them. And what's crazy is that I ended up going to a different company that does it. The customer service aspect of them being friendly wasn't the same. So I didn't know them, didn't really like them, didn't really care for the company, but I trusted them that my garments were going to be ready at the time that they said it was going to be ready. And when I received it back, it was in better condition than it was when I dropped it off. So I do believe that. And I don't believe that, and it really just comes down to trust.
Well, our focus should be to try to mend those 2 together, where they have a great experience and they like you. Because then when you have that and you meld those all together, as I believe we have, then, 750 plus 5-star reviews on Google with a 5-star rating, which everybody that understands mathematical probabilities is really hard to get to, without getting a 4.9 in there, because there's certain people you're never going to make happy. That's how you get there, is making sure people have amazing experiences. Even the people you don't do business with initially, the people you go out and you inspect their roof and there's nothing wrong with it. Great news. Be excited to tell them that. They're going to be apologetic about wasting your time. And you're like, hey, it's not wasting time at all. I'm here for a relationship. Eventually this roof will get taken out. We're in North Texas. Call me every time a wind or hail event happens, and I'll be glad to come out and give you this peace of mind every single time until that time in which I give you the news that it was inevitable. And I'll be your guy. And you think they're going to go out shopping it when you've been their guy all along, committed to coming out and giving them that peace of mind every time, giving them a new report every time, so that if the insurance company does come out and they have damage, the insurance company can't claim that it's old damage because they have a report from just 3 months ago when you were up there showing there was no damage. And so it's just these little fine-tuning things that if we just, I talked about it at Limitless when I did my talk up on stage. I was a little bit eccentric when I showed up with my cowboy hat on, and people that know me personally know I also have a ranch here in Texas, and I use the example that so many times I'm walking my fences and I have cows and I have goats, and our donkeys are either over the fence eating from, or they have their head through the fence eating from the grass on the other side of the fence. And if they would just turn around, there's 60 acres of grass they can eat that's free to them. And if we as salespeople, as VPs, would remember, especially if we've been in business any amount of time, you have a huge customer base that you've already on your acreage, that you've already either done business with or served in some way, that are huge opportunities. And yet we're all focused on everything that's out there. Turn around and look at all these people that you already did their inspections in the past and there was nothing there. There's opportunity there. Hey, it's been a year since I came out and inspected your roof. It's time to go ahead and get that free inspection on the board again. If salespeople would do this consistently, they would stop worrying about the storms happening, in those storm markets, because they will find work just by going back to the people that's already called in the past. And guess what? They called you because they trusted you. So it's not going to be hard to convince them to have you come back out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you don't do all that other stuff too, but focus also, remember, a lead source. Our top lead sources monetarily every single year over year, are self-generated leads, previous customers, and referrals.
Yeah.
All three of those have one thing in common. Relationships were established. Now, DT truck wraps, billboards, SEO, that's all on there as well. And there's a ton of revenue attached to those, but none of them touch those top three when it comes to relationships. And truth be told, outside of the fuel and the time, there's no cost associated to them most of the time. When I tell people what my percentage of marketing actually is, everybody tells me I'm supposed to be spending 5 to 6% of revenue. It's less than 1%.
Wow.
And I know guys like Keith Hicks and Ronnie Lawler over in Tyler, Texas with Avco that spend even less than that because they understand this philosophy. So it can be done without spending a ton of money on marketing. Not to say that marketing isn't important. It absolutely is. Our brand is what it is because of our marketing efforts. But remember, you're also a walking brand. You're hard pressed to find a picture of me where I'm not wearing a DT hat. And that whether I'm on vacation, whether I'm at a conference or whatever, I generally am wearing my brand, or I'm wearing a buddy's brand. This is Randy Brothers' company. So I love marketing, but let's not get so tied into the marketing side that you forget that relationships are going to abound bring you way more success.
Yeah. Like you have to, your brand has to cash that check that your ass just wrote, I firmly believe in, partnerships, relationships, return clients, customers, referrals. 50% of our lead intake is strictly referrals. And I've been trying to explain this to a couple other contractors. If you can figure out, your ROI, on and your CAC and things like that, like figure out what percentage of your leads are referrals. And if it's 10%, shoot for 20. And then once you hit 20, go for 30. Once you get to 30, shoot for 50. But 50% of your should be referrals. And we're not even talking about necessarily repeat customers or self-gens yet. We're talking about just repeat business year over year should be referral based. Like if you're if you're training your sales team to ask for referrals, there's nothing wrong with asking. We ask for reviews all the time, especially on inspections. I love how you touched on the inspection thing. We love telling people too that, hey, you don't need a new roof. That's good news, right? Because now you've earned respect. You've earned, and that's the other thing I was touching on. It's like it goes much deeper than the like and no, right? It's a trust. That below that there's a respect, right?
Yep.
There's a respect. They respect you. They respect your opinion. That you are the professional. You're gonna give them the accurate information that they're seeking. And now you've become the roofer. Like you're not there to sell them a roof. And like, that's not our job. Our job isn't here to necessarily sell you a roof. Our job here is just be a roofer. We want to be the roofer guy in your phone. Like everybody's got the plumber dude and the electrical guy. Like we want to be the roofer guy.
It's funny you say that. When I was in sales, when customer wanted to take my information down on their phone, I wouldn't say Randy Hurtado with DT Roofing or other. I would use the alliteration because they remember that. I'll just save me in there as Randy the Roofer.
Exactly.
Because it's easier to remember. They could just type in roofer as their search criteria to find that guy that they're working with. And so, but something you touched on a moment ago when you were talking about your percentages, yes, definitely focus on trying to get each lead source type to a higher percentage. But as important from a sales leadership standpoint is KPIs. Like we talk a lot about KPIs, people are talking about it a lot, but I think oftentimes it's brushed over on how important it is. If your designation and your sales team is your top guy is the one that brings in the most revenue, then you're missing the mark. Because sometimes the guy that brings in the top revenue may also be the guy that sucks at reviews, sucks at referrals, sucks at self-generated. He just may be really good at closing, but he doesn't necessarily know how to get a review from somebody. So in our company, we have a grading system. And each month, because we have 17 sales guys, there's 17 possible points. So the top revenue guy, he'll get 17 points for that category. But then depending on how many reviews he gets, he may only get 4 points. He'll be in fourth place. At the end of the year, we add up all those points, and the guy with the most points technically is our best salesperson, well-rounded salesperson. He may only be number 3 in revenue, but his margins are stellar. He's number 17 in margins, right? And just talking from a pure numbers perspective, I could care less if I'm doing 3 million a year, but I have a much higher margin than the guy that's doing 5 million. Everybody talks about, well, you throw out numbers, and we I've done it even on here talking about we'll do 30 million this year. Yeah, but how much are you keeping? How much of that is actually profit? And so that is more important, and it seems obvious, but sometimes people have to hear it. It's more important than your revenue numbers is how much are you actually keeping? And so if you put a point system in place where your guys, and then they'll also hear, because we have every month we have $500 gift cards that we give out for 4 or 5 of the different KPIs. What's great is if it's always the same guy. Like when I was in sales, most months I was the top salesperson. So it almost becomes white noise. But if it's like a different guy getting recognition for a different achievement every month, then it's a team thing. Jacob, you got the top margin award this month. Here's your $500 gift card. Great job. Dwayne, self-gens, man, you smashed it. 243,000 of your $300,000 in sales was all self-gens. Here's 500. So we're focusing on other KPIs other than just revenue. And it gives guys that may not ever be the top salesman, but are killing it in other categories that help the company grow as a whole, recognition. And that's why where it helps. I know I'm always going to have some guys at the bottom. It's just a mathematical fact. And so, but I want to make sure I recognize them when they're doing stuff that is really good behavior. And so just it from what we do within our DT family.
Yeah, no, I love that. Accountability, a lot of people look at that as a negative word. And you have to have a culture of accountability. Accountability means success. That means successfulness, right? Accountability and KPIs. If you have core values and they coincide with your KPIs and they end up working together cohesively, right? So And a lot of that is built around taking care of each other as a team, like you were talking about. Like, we're a team, we're a family, we're in this together, and we're holding each other accountable and pushing each other. Because like you said, if there's a different guy at the top and they're graded on a curve, right? Because that's kind of how we do the KPIs. The KPIs are designed like they may not have closed 2 deals a week, right? But their revenue was still there, right? Like per week. We even go as far as door hangers, doors knocked, yard signs put out. Now that's a manually entered thing by the salesperson. Just a part of the training process, because we also spoon feed leads to the company, but we also encourage to go canvas the neighborhoods, the ones that we gave you the leads. Like, look, we just gave you this entire neighborhood. Go own it, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't put these things in, as silly as it is, you got to almost put guide rails up. Like, look, you need to put out at least 3 yard signs in every neighborhood in strategic places that isn't on somebody's property necessarily, unless it's a roof we've done or getting ready to do. But at the end of the cul-de-sac, at the stop sign down at the end of the street, like strategic places, because they have become, like you said, a walking billboard for us. They are our brand. So they're the ones out there creating these touch points. And we have to teach them. And we got a lot of people here. I think most of our sales reps right now, at least in our PA location, none of them came from the roofing industry. So I 100% agree with that, because they don't come with the bad habits. And we've brought people in from the roofing industry, and we have a couple down south and stuff. But they tend to be, unfortunately, not the ones that we have right now, but the ones that we have had in the past seem to be the ones that come from a bad culture, that are used to being ripped off. So that it's almost like they're paranoid, and then they don't ever follow through. They're used to AccuLinks, and we don't use AccuLinks, and we use it differently than they used it, because we actually have systems and processes put in place, and they just don't want to follow the system and the process. And it's like, it's accountability. We're asking you to be successful. Like, do you not want to be successful?
Right.
Okay. I do. Well, okay, then follow the process. And it's the roadmap to 6-figure success. Like, it's designed for you to succeed, so everyone else around you can succeed as well. Our service guys have jobs, our gutter guys have jobs, our window guys has jobs. They do such a great job. So then you get a referral. Like, this is how this incubator works. Like, if you're not in tune with what it is that you're doing, it's like either level up or they just get pushed out, because they don't like the word accountability. It's not a negative. It's definitely a positive. So I got a question. Let's go back real quick here. When you went from that working for somebody else into that entrepreneurial journey, I heard you say that, like, you were a salesperson, you were selling, you were operating and doing everything else. And what crossed my mind is that, the different mindsets that it takes. Like, if you move your top salesperson into a sales management position, that doesn't always make them a great sales manager, just because they're your top performers, because it requires 2 different sets of skills, right? When I'm so used to being rewarded based upon my performance, right, as a salesperson, and then you move that person into a management position, and now they're rewarded in a different way. Like, how did you handle that situation and pivot? Like, was the pain great enough where you were like, you know what, I need to do something else, right? But how did you, because we're born with certain skills, but there's things that we have to do to sharpen our skills and stuff like that. So talk to us a little bit about that transition, that season of your life right there.
So years ago, I read a book, and I can't recall which book it was, but the statement was made in it at the time. I thought, that's silly. The statement was, salespeople make terrible sales managers. And having never been a sales manager in the past, only being a salesperson, of course, my natural pride was like, what are you talking about? I would kill it as a sales manager. I would teach these guys. And then I became an entrepreneur where for a small, actually large amount of the time, I was also managing the sales team. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we joined Ryan Groth's sales transformation group where we had to take some tests. And the tests were both for the salespeople, but they were also for management. And I took a test, and the results came back. Of course, these are unbiased results. I just plug in my answers, and then it feeds out the results. And what I read, when I read the result, I knew what I had to do. The result essentially said, you're a visionary and you're a leader, but you're a terrible manager. And I knew that to be true, but I needed a report to tell me that. And what I mean by that is my expectations, because of the way I've sold my entire professional career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my expectations were always the way I did it, no variance from it. And if you didn't do it that way, then, then I was rah, rah, rah at you. And I was burning a lot of my guys. Like, none of them left, but I could tell when I'm talking to them that I wasn't getting through, because all they could hear is the abrasiveness,
Mm-hmm.
because I was probably talking condescendingly to them, because I got it all figured out. I'm a, great salesperson. So just listen to what I'm telling you to do it exactly that way. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that story is with me, in that I had to realize I was a terrible salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
sales manager, and I needed to hire somebody that could connect with my guys a lot better, do the job that I needed him to do, but to connect. And that's where I brought in Mitch Hickman. He was actually one of our distributors, but our guys loved him. He'd come in and he'd do what distributors are supposed to do to maintain relationships, but he got it. He understood relationships was a foundation of our company. So he was in here a lot. He was, coming in, training the guys, feeding them, everything. And they really just took to him. And so I hired him, and it has been phenomenal. Like, he's still very, like, I like to tell people, like, he's a savage when it comes to, like, his little comments and stuff. He always has one in the chamber ready. So if you're going to razz him, you better be ready to get razzed right back.
Mm-hmm.
He's that type of personality, but he does it in a way that everybody can laugh at themselves, but he knows when to be serious. But they don't feel attacked like they did when they were dealing with me as the manager.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really difficult for me to acknowledge that for myself too. Like, because I knew my heart behind it was I wanted them to be successful. It wasn't because I was just being an ass. I wanted them to be successful. And that's why I'm like, you got to stop doing it that way. I've told you, if you keep doing it this and then you don't do it that, and then I catch myself and, like, look at my body language.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're seeing. And they're not hearing anything I'm saying because they just feel attacked. And so I still will stand by that book and say that salespeople, good salespeople. Now, there may be a guy who may not be fit to be a salesperson, but
Mm-hmm.
he is fit to be a sales manager.
Yep.
But I don't think that good salespeople are great sales managers because of that reason. They're always going to have this archetypal, like, this view of how it should be done. If you don't do it their way, then you're doing it the wrong way, even if your way is just another way to do it right.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And that's why I asked you that, because, you've been in business long enough, and I've been in business long enough where, my roles within the company have changed. And in order for that to happen, I had to humble myself sometimes and realize that I'm not the greatest fit, to always be, a sales manager. Yeah, I was great at sales. I love to pour into people, but a lot of things I take maybe a little too personal, and I'm pulled in a lot of different directions as the leader of the company. I still, and even still today, I still get pulled out into the weeds at times. But I think the biggest thing is giving somebody else the opportunity to come in and lead, the sales team and the sales force and stuff like that, had more impact, because I was spread so thin at the time that I was kind of mediocre at everything.
Right.
Until I started to, like, let go of things, and somebody said something, and I always say it wrong, but I was okay with, if they could only do it 70% as well as I could do it at 100%, they're doing it 100% better than I am now, because I'm mediocre and not even excelling at any facet of my life, because I'm wearing 15 different hats that actually created 12 full-time jobs. When I finally discovered that I needed to let go to grow personally and professionally. And the cool thing is that we were giving other people opportunities to flourish and blossom and hone their craft. But that's the thing about delegation. Doesn't mean that I just push it off to somebody else and forget about it. right?
Yeah.
That I have to have a framework that I'm handing to them, but also check in on them to see how they're doing and maybe critique a little bit like, hey, maybe you might want to try it this way, right? Because I can tell you how to do things that doesn't, like, I can tell you how to golf, but I'm not a very good golfer, right? Like, but I can tell you what you're doing. I can tell you what's wrong with your swing, but my body and mind can't do it. You know what I mean? And that's the God's honest truth. Like, my son just got into golf, right? And he's already better than me. And I'd like to say it was through some of my guidance. Like, why do you keep pulling your head? Like, keep your eye on the ball, right? But I can't do it. I'm peeking. I call it peeking. I'm already looking where I think the ball is going to go.
Right.
And it didn't even leave the ground yet because I totally whiffed it.
Yep. I'm the same in golfing. I only play if it's going to be a scramble where
Yeah, I love it.
one of our guys is he's a former professional golfer, and so if Kevin's in the mix, then we're just we're there for the ride.
That's right. He's your anchor guy. That's right. I'm a good putter. I can sink a good long putt every now and then.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I know you've been on the same journey as me, and having that humbling, eye-opening experience. And we do this. We can't forget, like I said, at Limitless, like, we can't forget why we're doing this. Right. And we get into it at first. There's different levels of that. First, it's kind of survival, and then it becomes purpose, jumping right to purpose. And, our purpose today, our why, is to have the biggest impact as we possibly can on our teams and homeowners and our communities and things like that. And when you can get to that mindset that, I'm really just here today as a figurehead to keep the teams motivated and maybe come up with some bright ideas and not get distracted. Oh, and that's something I wanted to ask you about, all these different companies that you have, distractions, right? Because when I see companies that have multiple facets of companies, entities under the same roof, have you found yourself being distracted or it's been an anchor? Because I heard you say something about the power washing company, right? So I don't know exactly what happened there, but like, okay, so we've gotten involved with a couple of things over the years, and we found it just easiest to like kind of cut our losses or unload it, sell it, exit it, and things like that. So for you, how have you been able to identify if what we're going to get involved with complements what it is that we do now? Like, it's not too far off the track. We're already at the house. We might as well just power wash it too, or whatever, right? So that instance would complement, if you're a roofing and siding contractor, power washing would complement what it is that you do anyhow, because maybe they didn't need new siding, maybe it just need washed, right? So adding that facet to it. But have you found yourself adding things to it that you think is such a freaking great idea, but have come to realize that it hasn't been?
So oftentimes we don't know until we've tried something. I wouldn't say that we regret. We started the soft wash company in 19 and we just exited this year. So it year over year did well in revenue, and the margins in that world are excellent.
Mm-hmm.
The problem we had was leadership. And that's actually, when it comes to not getting distracted, the best thing you can do. We talked a little bit about separating the companies into their own LLC, so they have their own books. So, it's not a hobby, it's an actual business. Part of that separation is also having management in place, leadership in place for each individual company that takes ownership. Clay Porter, the president of our construction company, used to build homes. He treats Kingdom Builders Construction like it's his company. And so we don't often have to get involved in the day-to-day operational side. It's not until there's some, most of the time it surrounds money being spent is when Derek and I need to get involved and give the okay. But other than that, we have a leadership meeting once a month with all of the department heads for all of the companies, and we discuss all the variables that they need our input on, and or things need to be addressed or what have you. It's also when we pick our employee of the month out of all of our staff, out of all the companies. We also all vote on an employee of the month. But so part of not getting distracted is making sure you have good leadership. We just didn't have that. My oldest son was helping me out by running that company, but it wasn't his passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it wasn't his passion, it wasn't being led well. He was getting the jobs done that we were putting in front of him, But as far as it growing from anything outside of just our sales guys seeing an opportunity and selling it, that wasn't something he was interested in doing. We were basically giving him the business and saying, it's yours, build it. And it just, he doesn't fall from that. That apple didn't fall from this tree as far as that goes. He's more, now he works in the oil and gas world where he's building the equipment that they use for that world, and he's enjoying it. He's thriving. He didn't want to be an entrepreneur. He didn't want to be the leader and have that responsibility. And I'm okay with that. That's very mature for him to identify that and say, this isn't me. I was doing this to help you. Yeah. And as soon as I figured that out, I had somebody already in the queue that had a window washing company locally that was going to start offering the services we offer. And so it was natural just to say, well, you can either go out and spend a bunch of money to compete, or you could just buy the company off of us, and then, you're already ready to hit the ground running. And so it worked out well all the way around. It also was our lowest revenue company. So it was easy to exit that one. If it was, commercial roofing, I'd probably say, no, we're going to give this one, we're just going to get better leadership in place. But with that one, it was our opportunity to go, well, it is our lowest performing revenue wise company, even with the margins being where they were. Let's just go ahead and exit that, continue to give this guy the business that we get from the need so that it blesses him and keeps our customers happy. And then we can focus our efforts on the businesses that are thriving and really doing well. Yeah. And that's kind of how we handle that, is not getting distracted by having good leadership and being passionate about what it is that we're offering. Yeah. If you get into something and you realize that you're not happy doing it, get out, because it's not going to change.
Yeah, no, that's a great response, Randy. It is about not how am I going to do this, but who are we going to get to do this? I'm a firm believer in that, or else we wouldn't probably be where we're at today. Is just finding the good leadership that fits the culture, that are highly driven, motivated people that want to take ownership in something has definitely been a plus for us over the years too. And they get it, just like Gino Wickman talks about. He calls, they get it, they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. And when you can find the right people, man, there's empires that can be built, because yeah, so that's a great answer. Let's change gears here a little bit, man. We're getting down to that at 1 hour time limit here, but let me ask you some personal questions here. What is your favorite thing about your job that you enjoy doing right now?
I would say my favorite part about being an entrepreneur, and this is the God honest truth, because money is important, but it doesn't. I think anybody who loves to give will understand, like, receiving is not anything near giving. And I love to see our team thrive. I love to see families within our company that are buying a house for the first time, or getting that vehicle that they never thought they would be able to afford, or, doing something, putting money away for a child's education, or things that they never thought were possible. That guy that I hired, Jacob, that was a teacher, he was making $40,000 a year. And busting his butt, doing a fantastic job as a teacher. He was actually my son's teacher and coach for years. And again, I speak to relationships. Most of these guys that I hired, I knew. So I already knew they were of good moral character and integrity. I didn't have to take them in an interview and then try to see if they're blowing smoke or if this is the real person. I already knew these people, and I knew that they would do well. And he has done so well for us. He owns a nice home now on acreage, and he's just smashing it for his family, and he deserves it because he works hard and he loves on our customers well and treats and serves. Another thing that I love about our company, especially our sales team, is, and you'd be hard pressed to find this, is we use Microsoft Teams for our conversations among our team. You'll get a guy that'll say, hey guys, my adjusters meeting is going over longer than I anticipated. He showed up 20 minutes late, and I've got another adjusters meeting that I have to be at in 30 minutes. And it's 45 minutes out. Is there anybody in the area that can help me out? And I'll have guys falling over each other to help their colleague out. Not just a random guy that goes, yeah, I guess since no one responded, I'll take it. It's No, I got that for you, Jacob. No, man, I'm literally right down the road. I got this. You're like, all right, well, if you're sure, let me know if you change your mind. Right? I love to see, and I would hope that that is a not only inherently part of their personalities, but also a taught
Mm-hmm.
attribute because they see that from management, you know. And so, my favorite part about doing all this is seeing others thrive
Mm-hmm.
because I've been poured into in my life. I've had people that were mentors to me that have poured into me, and I've benefited that they didn't benefit anything from helping me. And so I love to see our team do the exact same thing. And so, yeah, that's honestly my favorite part about being in business is seeing that. Because, like I said, the money will naturally come because we're doing the job correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a result that it really excites me.
I love that. Great response. Great response. Because I would have to say myself that's definitely where I get most of my joy and giving that purpose and impact on people. And I love how you mentioned too. Even during COVID, we had I think there was 3 individuals, our team members, that were buying houses during COVID. Like they had that much faith in the company and stuff and having babies, right. And creating families, they're building families here, right. Like not just 1 baby, 2 babies, grandbabies, right. They got multiple cars in the driveway in the brand new house that they just bought a year ago. That's where I get my fulfillment from, right. Obviously my family, you know what I mean? But this has become an extension of my family. And to watch our family grow, and have babies and and watching them grow in their professional life and stuff. And that's why I stick around. You know what I mean? That's why I keep coming in here today, is to watch that growth and make sure people are not getting complacent and stuff like that,
Right.
because I want to see people grow. But I'm gonna ask you one more personal question here before we wrap up, man. I want to know, like what's your next big goal, and why is it so important?
My next big goal is to finish the race well.
And that in itself is very important. So now that's good stuff, man. But Randy, I guess we should run here a little bit. I feel like we could talk for a whole nother hour. But I'm sure you got to get back to work, and I got to get back to work. We're actually getting ready for RoofCon.
Yep. I'll see you there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. Let's hook up while we're down there, and
Yeah,
maybe go out to
that's
dinner.
going to be there. I am giving a breakout. I'll be doing a breakout session. If I can give a mini plug, as part of this whole process that we use internally, a couple of years ago, we created a company called roofingreferrals.com that helps other roofing companies learn the process that we have implemented internally that has helped greatly with our success through relationships. And so we'll have a booth there, and then I'll be speaking. I'll do a breakout session, speaking on the topics of relationships and farming, as I call it. It's the exact same conversation that we had at Limitless. I use Limitless as kind of like my, to see how the audience, received it. And it was received very well. After I got off the stage, of course, if you recall, we had the vendor, and our table was packed with people like, tell me more. Yeah. So I'm hoping to have the similar result at RoofCon. I just basically open up my playbook and share from stage what it is that we're doing to be successful, and a lot of nuggets for guys to take home and immediately implement. They're not philosophical things or anything. They're literally tangible things that you can immediately start doing and seeing a result.
Yeah, I like that. I like that about your breakout there at Limitless. It was tangible things that they could actually leave with. Like you told them exactly what you're doing. There was no vague or gray areas like where it was leading to more questions. But but how did you do it? Like you explained to us exactly how you did it, and I think you might even have mentioned that it might have been just a one-on-one conversation, or you might even set it up on stage. Like when you leave here, you're going to know exactly how we did it because I'm not going to hold back. Yeah. And I think I think, that in itself is true leadership, transparency, you being okay with you and sharing how you got there. Cause I think a lot of people get up on stages and it's all about them. Like, look how hip, slick, and cool I am. And we're a $50 million company, but don't really tell you how to get there.
Right.
Like that's great.
And the caveat I always give is I have zero concern sharing how I get there, because statistically only 5% of the people that hear it are going to do anything with it. One.
Mhm.
Second, you're not going to outwork me.
Mhm. Right.
You're not going to outwork me. So if you're implementing the exact same processes in my region, I'm friendly with a lot of the companies I compete with
Have
locally,
to be.
and they can know the entire playbook. They can watch these. They can be at the show or write it all down.
Mhm.
But you're not going to outwork me. You're not going to outwork the team. They bust their butt to get to where we're at, and so I had one of my competitors, and we can end with this, but one of my competitors literally after we went to lunch, and he's like, "What's your angle?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, you're liking my guys' posts and telling them great job, and when somebody says something about our company, you're giving our company credit and all that." I don't get it, and I'm like, because you're doing it right.
Mhm.
You're doing it the right way. You're not taking our industry the wrong way. You're showing people that there is a right way to handle it. As long as you are doing it the right way, I'm a fan. But you're not going to outwork me.
Mhm.
And as long as we can be competitors, friendly competitors, we're all going to, the rising tide lifts all ships.
That's right.
You could kind of see there was like an aha moment on his face. Like, I get that. Like, that's awesome. Like, I don't normally hear people think like that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be here at 10:30 at night, many nights, trying to get some stuff done. Cause during the day I was having people walk into my office asking questions, and I want to spend that time with them.
Mhm.
But you're not going to outwork me. So I'll tell you anything you want to know if you truly want to be successful, and do it the right way, and
Mhm.
not screw people to get to where you want to get.
Yeah. The silver bullet in success really is you got to give it away to keep it.
I like to say there's no one silver bullet to success. It's a magazine full of silver bullets with one in the chamber.
There you go. Exactly. And to touch a little more on what you just said, collaboration happens up here, right?
Yeah.
The competition happens down there. And if you're of that mind, that competition mind, if anything, they're our worthy rivals, right?
Yes.
They're worthy. If they're doing it right.
They help make me better.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's value in that. And we need that.
Yeah.
We need those rivals. So cool, man. Great conversation.
I really appreciate you asking me to be on your podcast, and I look forward to seeing you grow the number from 251 all the way up to 1,000.
No doubt, man. Thank you so much. And let's don't hesitate to come over to our booth.
I'll be there.
And we'll chit chatter and we'll go live again and see where you're at in a couple of weeks here, or next week actually already.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk more about what you got going on in your booth that you have set up down there. Let's talk a little more. Do about 10-15 minute skit.
Love it.
Down there and really plug the hell out of that thing for you. So, all right, man. Thank you, Randy. You have a blessed day, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Yep. See you, buddy.